every day that the Strait of Hormuz is closed, at least 10 million barrels is not being produced. Some estimates have it more like 14 million barrels. Combined with the destruction of some of the oil facilities, it is now around 1 million barrels that have not been produced. And if everything goes right, starting now, because at this point that we've lost a billion barrels. Um, as the war started, there was a glut of oil. That glut is now running out, and it's running out quickly. That means in the next month it is possible to have oil jump to 200 or even $300 a barrel. In other words, our day of reckoning is coming. How big of a deal is this? For today, I want to summarize an interview on ProfG Markets Podcast. Professor Aswath Damodorin is professor of finance at NYU's Stern School of Business. The guy wins teaching awards left and right, and I love reading his work and watching his interviews. 6 months ago, Aswath went on the show and he was more pessimistic than I've ever heard him. He predicted that the market was going to go down. Since then, the market has skyrocketed, and the question is, was he wrong? And the answer is no. He made the point then, and he repeated it in yesterday's interview, that timing the market is a fool's game. Underlying fundamentals do matter, but the market is moved by forces that don't look at the underlying market conditions. I'm going to save you the time of watching the interview from 6 months ago and the interview from yesterday, and I'm going to summarize what he said. So he was asked, is our current situation the same as the dot-com bubble in 2000? And his answer was, the impact will be greater this time because during the dot-com downturn, that was a collapse of expectations. So we had these lofty expectations of what the internet could do, and there was no way it could have ever met the hype. This time will be worse because the expectations are leading to a whole lot of spending, like the GDP we'd be currently in a recession if there wasn't so much investment into AI. And if AI proves to be not so awesome, then that collapse in spending will cause a recession by definition, because that all that investment will dry up immediately and will lead to a recession. But it may not have as big of an impact on jobs, because as much as the AI buildup is dependent on job destruction, that if the bubble pops and it's proven that AI doesn't replace workers as well as they believe it will, then the stock market can drop, but we may not see a collapse in the labor market. So maybe people won't lose their jobs as much. I don't know why that's the scenario that I'm hoping for, but let that go, Steve. Let it go. Um, he was asked about whether or not Taiwan being invaded would have an impact. And his answer to that was that the markets have not priced in catastrophic risks based on military fears. But again, that's not as bad as pricing in the oil markets, because that directly impacts spending. So he's like, we can always have something catastrophic come up that impacts the market. You can't get too upset with the market not pricing it in, because how do you price it in? Um, but he is shocked that the market is not pricing in appropriately what's happening in the oil markets. Now, if a collapse happens in the spending, it's going to have a huge impact on the banks. Are we looking at a repeat of the 2008 financial crisis, where the banks went belly up first, that led to that recession? And his answer to that was, that's possible, because the banks trying to diversify their debt, which is what they are doing right now. The banks are all trying to diversify and sell off some of their AI debt, because the banks are well aware that this is bubble-ish area, and so they're trying to diversify. But when all banks diversify in the same way, then it's like none of them have, because it is. It's the circular notion of all the banks selling to each other Means if everybody diversifies in the same way, then we could see the same thing as 2008 come up again. And so, in other words, since all banks are participating, there may be nowhere to hide. He took one more question that I thought was interesting. Since give an example of an industry where AI may actually be impacted that he believes in. And his answer was very simply higher education, his field, my field. For higher education, the impact may be on the research side because AI can do it. What excuse do you have to teach only 2 or 3 classes per semester and receive a very high salary when most of your work can be done by AI? And I also just love that answer because I think that there are a lot of people in higher education that are overpaid, that believe they are worth way more than they actually are. Too many people in academia and higher ed don't care about their teaching. I've seen people not only get tenure, but get promoted who are absolutely horrible in the classroom because all that's valued at many institutions is how good they are at their research. So anything that will take away from the arrogance of some of my friends would make me very happy. Um, I again, I love Aswath Damodorin. I believe I'm buying into his case. I bought into his case 6 months ago. I buy into it completely that we are going off a cliff. This is the Wile E. Coyote Roadrunner where he runs off a cliff and doesn't realize that he's run off the cliff, and it's only when he looks down that he begins to fall. I don't want to be right about this, but I also know I am. But it's just a matter of timing. Could we go another 6 months without any issue? Possibly. I think it's more likely than not that Trump's not going to be able to end this war and that the price of oil is going to skyrocket even more and that the catastrophic examples are going to be here sooner rather than later. Wow, that is incredibly pessimistic, but I'm trying to be realistic. Wish you well.